SAT or ACT? Which test should I take? This is a question I get from students all the time. And there's no quick and easy answer, but what I want to do right now is break down the difference between the two tests, share with you a few anecdotal examples, and let you decide for yourself. I don't promote one test over the other. They're both excellent tests, and most colleges require some sort of a standardized test to be able to really measure your aptitude. So let's take a look first at the breakdown. SAT has 3 math sections, 3 critical reading sections, and 3 writing sections, one of them being an essay. ACT will take that math, group it into one big section. So whereas the SAT will give you 3 separate, smaller, 25, 20-minute math sections, the ACT will give you 1 hour of math all at once. So for some students, they prefer to get the math out of the way all at once. Other students, oh my gosh, to sit for a solid hour, some students breaking that up into 20-minute sections can actually be beneficial and better for them. So you know yourself better than I do. Then when we look at the reading, critical reading, SAT and ACT fairly similar in terms of questions about the reading. One of the big differences is that SAT will do verbal reasoning or word reasoning, where you fill in the blank with a word or expression. And so having a really good vocabulary, SAT challenges your ability to work with words. And the ACT doesn't exactly have that. And the ACT asks questions running along kind of parallel to the paragraph, whereas the SAT has the questions at the end of the paragraph or reading selection. The writing section, similarly, ACT will have questions kind of going along with the text, and the SAT will break it into 3 sections. They'll have the first part of the grammar or writing section be the sentence improvement. Then they'll look at grammar issues and then paragraph improvement issues. So that grammar section or that writing section is broken into 3 little subsections, if you will. One of the other key differences between the SAT and the ACT is the fact that the ACT includes a science section. However, let me be fair and honest here, it's not exactly a science section. In other words, you're not going to be asked science questions based on general knowledge of science. It really is reading comprehension still within a science context. So you've got, you'll have to be able to read charts, scientific data. They'll explain what's happening, with an experiment. But it's really, all the questions are based on the facts and information given to you. So it truly is reading comprehension. I say this because I have students who have said, oh geez, I'm not very good at science, but ended up reading the science section as a reading comprehension section. And even though they weren't really strong with the particular sciences, everything they needed to know was presented there, and they were shocked at how well they did on the science section of the ACT. So again, the ACT science really kind of like a second reading, critical reading section, all based on science issues, context. Also, one of the key differences is ACT does include some trigonometry, some basic trig, and SAT math really only goes up into early algebra 2. And the key for both tests really is reasoning. We're looking at how to apply some basic concepts in math that, they're not trying to test if you can do calculus or anything like that. And a lot of students who are taking calculus, when they go back and they try to do the SAT or ACT math, have difficulties because they've forgotten all the rules of fractions and they've forgotten some of the little detail. And really, those basic rules is all that the SAT and ACT really want to test is, do you know how to apply them to different situations, different scenarios? and you have to be careful with the wording of the questions. So SAT versus ACT. The ACT includes a little higher level math, a little bit of trig, not much. The ACT includes a science section. With the ACT, the essay is optional. So those are some of the differences. Also, SAT offers now that you can keep your highest score for your math, your highest score for your critical reading, and your highest score for your writing, no matter how many times you take the test. So that's also another slight advantage. Lastly, we have a key strategy in terms of how you approach taking the SAT versus the ACT. The last strategy would be ACT, you do not get penalized for wrong answer, so you're answering every single question, no matter what, even if it's a wild guess. SAT, they don't want to hurt you for wrong answers, but they don't want you to reward you for random guessing either. They need to know that you really understand and are applying reasoning skills. So in our SAT program, we go through reasoning skills to help, process of elimination and be able to avoid getting penalties for random guessing. So the SAT does penalize a 1/4 point for a wrong answer. That's just to keep you honest. So that's it in a nutshell, the difference between SAT and ACT. At Straight A Academy, we do recommend students consider taking both tests. And as far as which one you'll do better on, I'll be honest with you, I really think it depends on the given day, as opposed to, oh, I'm stronger in math, so I'll take the ACT because it includes trig. One day versus another day, one student versus another student. There's so many other factors that go into your performance on a given test day that, some students will do better on the SAT and some will do better on the ACT. If they had taken the other test on the other day, the results could have been the opposite. So it's really hard to predict. There's people who feel that they really know the difference and this test would definitely be better for you as a student. Maybe they're just smarter than I am, but I have not been able to tell really much of a difference as far as how well you will do. Too many other factors, like I said. So that's it. SAT versus ACT. You've got to decide. One last note about SAT versus ACT from the college's perspective. Like I said, every college will be different in terms of how they approach this. So if you have a particular college in mind, contact the admissions office there or go online and find out information about that college and what their policies are. But I can tell you, some colleges will require that you take either the ACT or the SAT and 1 or 2 subject tests for the SAT. So there's some students might say, hey, I'd rather just take the ACT and that's it, I'm done. But honestly, taking the SAT and the subject tests can be very, very powerful and good for you, because if you do really, really well on the subject tests or AP testing, you might even get some college credit, depending on how well you do. Again, every college has its own policies. Another thing you should know is that in the Northeast, SAT is king, is pretty much dominant. ACT is still always a good alternative. As you go down the East Coast, the SAT is probably a little bit more popular. On the West Coast, the SAT probably a little bit more popular as well. When you get into the interior, the Midwest, the South, ACT actually becomes a little more popular. So there's no right or wrong answer, again, as far as which test you should take. If, however, you are considering going to a university in the Midwest or the South, they may have a preference. You might want to give them a call first. And that's one of the reasons that we recommend at Straight A Academy that you consider taking both tests, because it kind of keeps your options open just because every university is a little bit different in the way they look at things. If you've taken both of them, hopefully you'll do well in both of them. Then you keep your options open.